The coasts of Turkey are washed by 4 seas: the Black Sea, the Sea of Marmara, the Aegean Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea. The real tourist paradise has been built up in the enticing area of the Mediterranean Sea, where excellent hotels, traditionally friendly and high-quality service await guests. The landscape of the coast is extremely diverse. The attractiveness of the Turkish Riviera can be attributed to lakes that are a pleasure to the eye, swiftly flowing rivers, and waterfalls, bays, tiny cliffs, and islands, and rocky mountains full of serpentine roads. Djamies and minarets, fortresses, Greek and Roman relics, selchuk and other masterpieces of Ottoman architecture, gravestones carved into rocks similarly to Petra, half-timbered old houses, lively fishing villages, and crowded bazaars provide tourists with numerous exotic sights. Turkish people, like people in the South in general, are friendly, noisy, and open. They hardly ever hurry, and always find time for a good conversation, be it about politics, sports, or the weather. Men often play card games, or the board game called tavli, while women deal with their children, who are loved here just as much as the children in Italy. Life is busy on the coastal promenade. In the cafes, we can sip Turkish coffee with grounds or very hot apple tea, and we can also try hookah. Shops offer delicate jewels at prices much lower than in Europe, but we can also bargain for carpets, leather products, or several other handicraft works. People lived in the territory of Turkey even 3,000 years ago. Civilizations were born and fought with each other. Memories of the varied and sometimes tumultuous past call to mind those who managed to gain a footing here for a shorter or longer period of time. From among the pillars of ancient ruins, we can see the endless blue sea. Fighting past and peaceful present, high gray walls and colorful sun umbrellas, bulky towers, and slim sailboats. It's like Alanya, one of the tourist centers of the Riviera, which was the capital city of Seljuk in the 11th century. At the beginning of the 10th century, a tribal leader called Selçuk established the dynasty that was named after him. His descendants conquered ever more areas, gradually progressing to the west. They diligently built Djamies, madrasas, caravanserais, and spas, which were decorated with stoneworks and painted tiles of Arabic origin. Alanya Kalesi, or fortress, which was built at the foot of Toros Mountain, is also a Seljuk building. The enormous rampart with serrated walls and 150 towers was erected in 1220. From the shade of the ancient little houses on top of the mountain, we can see the harbor and the beach, but we can also take a glimpse at the surroundings of the entire city and parts of the fortress below. The intimate little Byzantine church is 2,600 years old. At the time of the declining of the Western Roman Empire, it was the biggest city of the ancient empire in the south. Constantinople, later Byzantine, ruled the political and economic life of the area. Contrary to Rome, it could resist conquering peoples who came with the waves of migration for more than 1,000 years. The authority of Byzantine and Christianity lasted until 1071, when Asia Minor was flooded by Arabic and Turk peoples. Followers of the Prophet Muhammad, though, did not destroy the sacred places of those who had another faith, so we're able to admire them today as well. The huge water tank and water system built at the same time as the fortress are proof of profound engineering skills. The 35-meter-high bulky octagonal red tower, which was named after its building material, red sandstone, stands at the southern corner of the harbor. Each side is 12 meters thick. Beside it, the naval base and the arched walls of the dockyard, built in 1227, can be seen. All of the tunnel-like gaps built of ashlar are 8 meters wide, so bigger ships could also be towed here for repair. Today, it's used as a dry dock. Lively, colorful beaches are often to be found at the foot of old fortresses and town walls. Characteristic flat-bilged, wide ships sail from here, with protective canvas to shield travelers from the ferocious sun. These are called dolmus, to be found everywhere across the country. They're also called goulet, and used especially as pleasure boats for carrying passengers. As from almost every harbor of the Turkish coast, cruises leave from Alanya too, which on the one hand provide beautiful spots that can be seen only from the sea, on the other hand take us to calm, quiet bays which offer perfect bathing opportunities. These journeys are called blue cruises here, and they're so popular that in peak season one can hardly move in the harbor due to the number of ships and boats. Fortunately, the water is not so crowded. The coastline is extremely structured, and in the area of little bays, lagoons, and islands, everyone can find untouched places. Experienced boatmen know just where to take travelers who want to swim, dive, and take photographs. For the pleasure of tourists, but rather for their own, a lot of people throw themselves into the sea from the ledges of rocks. This habit is very common at beaches from Acapulco to Croatia and Paleokastriga in Corfu. It's not a completely safe, but certainly a very spectacular sport. Despite rapidly growing tourism, coastal waters are clean and present a color scale from bright turquoise to ultramarine blue. This coastline of the Mediterranean Sea is called Akdeniz, or White Sea, by the locals. Numerous species of wildlife live here, from sea turtles, cuttlefish, and crabs to dolphins, who in the hope of some food follow tourist boats in swarms. A romantic dinner on board awaits tourists who've tired of all-day swimming and sports activities. Chicken or fish caught during the day are grilled over coals and served with fresh salad and, of course, with local white wine. Some kind of musical instrument can also emerge, and atmospheric lighting is given by the setting sun above the sea. To see tourist sites that are farther away from the coast, we can hire a car. However, a jeep with a driver who knows the area well and can be our guide is even better. Along the Alara River, we can visit an old caravanserai and an ancient castle built on a rock. Caravanserai was a characteristic building type of the Eastern world. Travelers, wanderers, and traders could stop here for the night. They could also eat and even feed and tie their animals up in the stable. In other words, it was like a post house or a modern motel. In the area of the former caravanserai, travelers of these days can try the ancestors' means of transport, the camel. They don't look at the animal with less amazement than a medieval trader would look at our present-day cars. Not to mention the fact that camels wear fashionable caps and shawls today. Dimchai is an attraction of the area that cannot be missed. It's highly advisable for vacationers at the coast to come here because in the shadow of the trees, the weather is always fresh, and lively folklore and handicraft exhibitions offer pleasant entertainment. Figures moving at the entrance are to entice guests. They're moved by hydro energy the same way as water mills. Those who are staying for a longer period can also find accommodation here, and the swimming pool of the hotel can be used by guests of the restaurants too. Hospitality units built next to and above the fast-flowing Dim River are entirely unique. There are tents arranged in a terraced way in which the whole family can sit comfortably at a large table to have lunch or dinner together. The main course comes straight from the river, in which we can soak our feet during the meal. Salad and pita bread are served with trout, but it's of course possible to order red mullet or crabs. Those who are not fish fans can ask for chicken or lamb. Baklava is simply impossible to miss, as well as the local brandy, raki. After the meal, we can light up a hookah or water pipe, which is called shisha by Arabs and nargila by Turks, or simply lie in one of the hammocks fixed above the water. We can admire the capricious creature of nature, the waterfall, the waves of which diffract the light, creating an ever-changing rainbow above the river. We can consider participating in a rafting tour, which is a very popular activity here. 12 to 16 tourists wearing life jackets are seated in one big, colorful, inflatable boat, and with the help of a professional guide and their oars, they try to row down the fast-flowing river without capsizing. At the end of the tour, participants get the pictures of their quite frightened faces taken by their friends. Many of them travel here solely for this purpose. Others come here for the beauties of nature, to admire the special cactuses and other plant species. Others are attracted by Eastern comfort and delicacies served in the tents. Although the world-famous pizza is Italian, more precisely an invention from Naples, people made similar things in several other countries of the world. Just think of the Hungarian palatine with sour cream or cabbage, the French crepe, or the Mexican tortilla. Turkish pizza has also been well known for ages, made of unleavened dough, topped with various stuffings, then folded in two, just like the Italian pizza calzone. In Anatolia, it's called lahmacun, stuffed with ewe cheese, minced lamb, and onion, then roasted over coals. In Arab countries, in Morocco and Egypt as well, we can eat similar food. In Turkish restaurants, appetizing specialties are made by grilling lahmacun, and it's usually made by women. The flatbread belonging to any kind of meal is baked the same way in restaurants, always on the spot when the guest enters the restaurant. Craftsmen are an alluring part of the bustle of Eastern bazaars. In their stalls, they not only sell their products, but they often make them too. Different crafts have different streets, and carpet weavers, coppersmiths, ironsmiths, potters, leather goods makers, and silversmiths make their goods on the spot. Similar stalls are in Dimchai too, where we can see the preparation of handmade calabash ornaments, or lanterns. Products of Turkish markets are very similar to those of the Arabic ones, however the ornamental motifs are different. Metalworking, be it brass, silver, iron, or gold, has great tradition here. The selection is so huge and prices so low that we can certainly find something as a souvenir. But we mustn't forget that bargaining is compulsory here. After a pleasant day on an excursion, we look forward to an exciting evening. Due to the heat in daytime hours, the towns are empty. There's only life on the beaches. Crowds set off to have dinner, to go shopping, walking, and to be entertained in the evening. Stores in the shopping streets, restaurants, and vendors are open until late at night, so those who spent their whole day on the beach can also buy postcards and souvenirs. Crowds meander in the streets of the well-lit city. Romanticism still exists in the smelly, hot Eastern night as it used to when Cleopatra and Anthony spent their honeymoon here. The ancient ruins of Sida still stand directly on the coast at the edges of the villages Selimiye and Koyu. Selimiye is a modern settlement which has been brought to life by tourism. It lies on a promontory framed by sandy beaches surrounded by hotels. In the evenings, loud music rumbles in bars and discos, crowds surge forward in the promenades and shopping streets. In the popular restaurants of the town, in Apollonik, Negris, and Afroditiu, we can hardly find a free table. Scattered ancient ruins make the place extremely unique, and this is true for the beaches as well. Bathing in the shadow of the scenery-like but authentic Corinthian pillars is an extraordinary experience. The town was surrounded by walls fortified with bastions in the 2nd century BC, part of which can still be seen today. In the enclosed excavation area, we can admire the former spa of Sida, the theater, the Temple of Apollo, and the relics of some residential houses for an admission fee. Agora, the marketplace of Sida, was a bit different from marketplaces of the neighboring towns because sometimes pirates sold their captives as slaves here. The theater was attached to the western side of the Agora, and its side facing the sea was connected to the bathing complex. This was the entrance to the town. The 14-meter-high gate, though in ruins, stands yet today. The main road lined by columns was its continuation, but we can see only its beginning, since houses of a modern settlement have been built along the rest of the road. Statues, reliefs, fragments of columns, and sarcophaguses are exhibited in the bath building, which functions as a temporary lapidary. Manavgat, the county seat, lies 7 kilometers from Side on the road leading to Alanya. The town of 80,000 residents is worth visiting, especially on Monday, on the day of the weekly market, when sellers from the area bring their goods, from fruit and vegetables to craft work here. The main site of the town is the 2-terraced Manavgat waterfall. Water of the river pours down from a height of 5 meters, creating dense vapor. Several restaurants have been built under the shady trees that frame the river, and their terraces offer pleasant refreshment in the heat. The waterfall can be approached on a road, but it's more interesting by boat, which leaves from the foot of the town bridge. Aspendos is known mainly for its world-famous antique theater, one of the few ancient theaters in the world which have remained intact. Its perfect acoustics are frequently used to hold performances and concerts. The Antalya festival was first ordered by Kemal Atatürk and has been held every year since 1959. The theater of the capacity of 20,000 people was built under the rule of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The background of the crescent-shaped auditorium is the natural hill rising behind it. The theater was used as a caravanserai by the Selchuk, and this protected it from being destroyed. We know only very little about the origin of the town, however it's certain that it existed in the 5th century BC, proven by metal coins archaeologists found here. It was a prosperous merchant and harbor town in the time of the Greeks, which was approached on a widened creek from the sea. Aspendos was a member of the Delian League, and flourished in the Roman era as well. The history and intact ruins of Perge are very similar to those of Aspendos. Its establishment reaches back to the times of the Trojan War. However, most of its buildings come from Roman times. The theater was built by Greeks and perfected by the Romans. Its stadium, that can seat 12,000 people, is the biggest one in Asia Minor. A water conduit ran under its main road, framed by a colonnade. This ensured water to public spas of the town. Parts of the walls and bastions that surround the town and houses attached to them still stand today. Necropolis was excavated at the western side of the former town in 1946. Local people are very proud of the fact that Turkish archaeologists worked here without foreign help. Recently, new discoveries have been made. They dug the base walls of a Byzantine basilica and even found the former citadel, the Acropolis, at the top of a hill. Objects and statues found during the excavation of Perge can be seen in the museum in Antalya. Antalya, with more than 500,000 inhabitants, is a provincial seat. According to a lot of people, it's not only the biggest, but also the most beautiful city in the area. The often snow-capped mountain Taurus is the background for Antalya that was built on a plateau. The symbol of the city is the monumental tower comprising round arched pillars, the Yivli minaret. Together with the mosque attached to it, it's a masterpiece of Seljuk architecture. Its base is square, and there's a stone astragal above, followed by 8 semi-cylindrical pillars made of red brick. The balconies are decorated with the same stonework as the Djamie built by Aladdin Kekova I and covered with 6 domes. Earlier, it was an archaeological museum. The massive tower, Hierapolis, standing at the end of the coastal promenade, functioned as a lighthouse from Roman times up to the 19th century. It was really necessary, proven by the number of ships that sunk here, the wrecks of which attract both archaeologists and amateur divers. The 2 most well-known are the unfortunate brass-age galleon at Galinia Cape and the wreck in Sertse Bay. It was found by American archaeologist George Bass in 1973. Antalya is an influential trade harbor today as well, but it's very important for tourist boats too. The famous antique town of Termessos can be approached by boat from this harbor. Kas is a Mediterranean town with 8,000 residents. The atmosphere of its winding shopping streets with terraces is reminiscent of both Greek coastal towns and Arabic bazaars. Its whitewashed houses follow the coastline of a little bay. Kas lies on the area of the ancient Antiphalos. Ruins of the old settlement can be found scattered in the present-day modern town. In the evenings, most of the houses are transformed into a shop, where carpets, one more beautiful than the other, are hung on the walls of houses and brass lanterns are lit. Part of the evening activity is walking, shopping, and visiting the restaurants of Kas. Bahçe and Ober Ev Yemekleri offer traditional Turkish cuisine, while fish dishes are the most delicious in Merzan. Swordfish, a rare delicacy here, is prepared in an open kitchen. The best beach of the town is Buyukzakil, which is a bit far from the town. It can be easily reached, though, by dolmus that leads from the harbor. Pleasure boats leave from the same place to the island of Megisti and Kale. It's famous for St. Nicholas, who lived here, performed miracles, and died in 342. His statue that resembles Santa Claus stands in the park of the basilica, which was named after him. The most fascinating site of the area is the island of Kekova, which protrudes from the sea 15 kilometers west of Kale. Here, the ruins of a mostly sunken Lycian town can be found. Our ship floats above a stone grave and a huge basilica. From glass-bottom boats, the view is even more exciting. To take photos, it's best to use underwater cameras. Underwater cases and disposable cameras can be bought in photo shops of larger towns. Lycia has been a province of Asia Minor from the 6th century BC. Written Egyptian sources mention the town first in 2000 BC. Later, it was under Persian, Syrian, and Macedonian rule. Then it became a Roman province under the reign of Claudius. The 2 most important towns of the province between Fethiye and Antalya were Xanthos and Termessos. The necropolis of Termessos near Fethiye, which was the town of the dead, is more than a simple graveyard. The 20 stone graves can easily be seen from the sea. They are especially beautiful at sunset. For a long time, though, it was not even known that they existed. The entrances of the carved gravestones were covered by lush flora and trivial rock slides and discovered only in 1838 by English archaeologists. Thanks to their work, artifacts of Lycia are exhibited in a separate room of the British Museum today. It isn't known, though, whether Nabateans, escaping from Babylonian people in the 4th century BC and establishing Petra in Jordan, had any connection to Lycian people who lived at the same time. The building method, layout, and ornaments of gravestones seem to confirm this option. The scenery created by nature consists of palm trees, evergreens, and cedar trees, but whether we travel on land or on water, there are trees and bushes planted by people everywhere. Banana plantations, palm trees, fig trees, orange, lemon, and olive groves run along the sometimes sandy, sometimes rocky coast. The rocks form little tunnels, caves, and arches, while in the cusp of their bays, silky sand lies. Kaunas was also a Lycian town. It's thought to have been established in the 9th century BC and was at its peak at the same time as Termessos. Here we can also find gravestones and ruins. Kaunas is visited mainly not by those who love history, but those who are fond of sunshine and water sports. The most popular beach of Kaunas, Expoza, can be approached by boat from the harbor of Dalyan. Ships anchor beside each other, patiently floating on the waves, waiting to carry their passengers back to town before sunset. The beach is the citadel of every kind of seaside entertainment, from sailing to diving, from surfing to water skiing. We can find jet skiing, catamaran, and kiting, which is a mixture of surfing and parachuting, but the most fashionable is gliding. In case of a proper upwind current, we can take off after a simple run-up. Without the wind, a motorboat tows the parachute till it gets wind. After sunset, the beach is closed so that the sea tortoises, called caretta, can lay their eggs undisturbed. These seriously protected species incubate their eggs in the warm sand of the beach. Naturalists can encounter several other animals as well, while divers can observe several species of fish. Marmaris on the coast of Mugla Bay is maybe the most popular holiday resort of Turkey. It's the junction of the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean Sea and had a strategic significance even in the Ionic period. Later, it became an important transit port of sea trade between Greece and Egypt. Unfortunately, no tangible relics have remained from the times of the Karaai Kingdom. The fortress in the harbor, its entrance gate, and parts of the wall can still be seen today. It was built by Suleiman the Great in 1521 when the Sultan was preparing for the siege of Rhodes. It's not by accident that Marmaris has become a capital city of tourism. Of course, it's partly due to the beautiful scenery and partly to excursion facilities. The most important elements, however, are the clean, warm sea, attractive beaches, and everlasting sunshine. If we check the average of several decades, we can say that in Marmaris there are 150 sunny days, 150 changeable but rather cloudless, and only 65 cloudy days. Peak season lasts from May to October, when it hardly ever rains, and the temperature is above 30, in July and August above 40 degrees Celsius. In March, we can sit on the terraces of restaurants. In April, we can already swim in the sea, where the temperature can reach 30 degrees in summer. Sometimes we can swim even in November. As Marmaris lies in a bay, broken by little islands and similar to a fjord, it offers numerous possibilities to bathe. The most popular are the beaches that are near the harbor and the town center. Among those that are farther away, Senet Adas is visited mainly by families with little children because of its extremely shallow, sandy coast and huge shady trees. The beaches have an abundance of nicely formed stones and shells. We can collect them ourselves, but we can also buy them cheaply from local children on the promenade. Do the pretty ladies walking in bikinis on the beach know that Turkey was the first place in the world where a beauty contest was held? This is a very popular evening activity in hotels here. Marmaris was also rich in natural beauties. In its surroundings, loblolly trees, very rare in Europe, grow in forests under serious protection. The wax of the trees is given chiefly to temples, which use it for burning, but it's also utilized by the cosmetic industry. Hundreds of hotels have been built along the never-ending coast of the Mediterranean and Aegean Sea. Every price category is represented. We can find camping sites, rooms to rent, cheap guest houses, as well as real luxurious hotels. However, most of the hotels have only 4 stars. Everything that the guest can desire is found in them. Tropical garden, panorama restaurant with beautiful sunset, rich buffet-style meals, a la carte restaurant, and pool bar. Hotels simply compete with each other in designing swimming pools, which one can provide a more extravagant layout and more service in this field. Often slides, whirlpools, standing massages, and of course jacuzzi and sauna are included in the indoor and outdoor swimming pools. We can't miss the Turkish bath or hammam either. Most of the hotels have their own beach. This way, parasols and deck chairs are included in the price of the room. All-inclusive and ultra-all-inclusive accommodation is very frequent anyway, which means that the price includes not only meals and drinks, but also the usage of sport equipment, fields, fitness, and evening entertainment. Children are also taken into consideration everywhere by building children's pools, mini clubs, and offering nutritious meals. Apart from water sports, golf, tennis, horse riding, and beach volleyball are the most popular, but those who are fond of extreme sports can also find their kind of entertainment. Of course, we can find hairdressers and beauticians everywhere, but those who long for more pampering can go to a hotel providing thoracic therapy. Program directors come up with new kinds of entertainment every day for people who aren't tired enough after the all-day optional excursions. Tourists who like technical sports can try quads on seaside dunes, and in the evening, vaudevilles, review shows, and discos provide entertainment. One thing is sure, nobody will be bored. We can take several little excursions nearby. Bozburun is an intact, authentic little fishing village on the Lorimark Peninsula. The island of Kadre used to stand under the authority of Rhodes and is worth visiting mainly for its natural beauties. We can also visit Mugla, the capital city of the province. However, Datsa, on a peninsula stretching into the sea, is more interesting. From here, we have to go 40 kilometers to reach the ruins of Knidos from Hellenistic times. Those longing for a longer excursion can go to Bodrum by bus or car. It was known in ancient times as Halicarnassus, and its mausoleum was one of the 7 wonders of the world. From the harbor of Marmaris, we can sail to Rhodes, from Bodrum to the island of Kos. 2,000 years ago, the wonder of the contemporary world, the Colossus of Rhodes, stood in the harbor of Rhodes. We can see other wonders here, such as the Palace of the Johannite Masters, the Street of the Knights with its unforgettable atmosphere, the Citadel of Lindos with golden brown walls rising above the whitewashed houses, the Valley of the Butterflies, and the junction of the 7 springs where legendary forest nymphs lived. On the island of Kos, which is the birthplace of the father of medicine, Hippocrates, we can go up to the romantic mountain village Zia to watch the sunset while sipping retsina, listening to the unforgettable sound of Zorba. The two Greek islands with their unique atmosphere nearby could be a highlight of our vacation. There's no settlement in Turkey without Mustafa Kemal Pasha, otherwise known as Kemal Atatürk, standing on the main square. And Marmaris is no exception. The Pasha is thought to be the founder of modern Turkey. The meaning of the name Atatürk is the father of the Turks. After the First World War, he created a unified nation-state from the country of many nationalities and diplomatically fought for the present borders of the country. He implemented the Roman alphabet instead of the Arabic one and European clothing. His most influential deed, however, was that he separated the state from the church. Since then, Turkey's been the only enlightened secular Islam country. Though Ataturk died in 1938, his statues and portraits are respected throughout Turkey. The Turkish word pamuk means cotton, kala means castle, so Pamukkale can be translated as cotton castle. The metaphor is appropriate, since the 300-meter-high mountainside is covered by white fluff. It's a real fairyland where the calcium content of the thermal water, which has been breaking to the surface for centuries, creates fantastic formations. The water is 35 degrees Celsius, radioactive, and contains calcium and sulfur. It's used mainly for curing heart diseases, disorders of the respiratory and nervous systems, and as a liquid diet, it's also used for treating stomach problems. People cured themselves here even in Greek and Roman times. A lot of people come here to bathe and heal, and of course, admire the beautiful mountain. Turkish men like pampering themselves anyway. It's not customary for men and women to use the famous Turkish spas at the same time. If there are no separate buildings for men and women, they split the days of the week. The indispensable part of the spa is the massage, rubbing with foam, and pouring alternately with hot and cold water that stimulates the circulation. Men also go to the hairdresser every day to be shaven and groomed. As they're always among other men there, they come to Pamukkale with their families, bringing all the children and even more distant relatives. In ancient times, the city of Hierapolis stood in the neighborhood of snow-white, scallop-rimmed, limestone gypsum dropstone-like crystals hanging from terraces. First, we can take a glimpse of the biggest spa of the town. The domed, arcaded hall covered with marble provided sport, healing, and recreation facilities too, with cold, tepid, and hot pools and a gym. Public buildings that were common at that time, the Apollo Sanctuary and the Marketplace, lined the 1,200-meter-long columned main road. The theater facing west could be approached by 5 ornamented marble gates. On its stage, performances could be held on 2 floors at the same time. Its walls were decorated with reliefs, and of course, the most beautiful box was the Imperial Box. The 45 rows could seat 15,000 people at once. The 1-kilometer-long burial place at the end of the road also proves the former significance of the town. The Church of Apostle Philip was built in the 5th century at the highest point of the town. From here, we can look down at the wide colonnaded road connecting the 2 ends, which was framed by shops and public buildings. On the northern side, we can find the remaining parts of the triumphal arch of Domitianus. The 5,000-kilometer-long Cappadocia in the middle of the country is the most extraordinary landscape in Turkey. The strangely shaped creations, domes, towers, and peaks might also be the scenery of a surrealist film. Guided tours from the beach bring those who are interested here. This area was the scene of incredibly active volcanic activities 30 to 60 million years ago. The now inactive volcanoes south of Nevşehir and Kayseri, Hasan, Melendis, and Erciyes, rising above 3,000 meters, deluged the surrounding landscape with lava and ashes for centuries. The area lying at the foot of the mountains, 1,200 meters above sea level, changed into a many-layered, filled highland. After the ceasing of volcanic activity, counterpowers followed and began to erode, break, and chisel the surface. Kızılırmak and its side rivers scooped a bed for themselves. Earthquakes formed enormous fault lines and ditches. Heavy rainfalls, strong winds, and sandstorms all contributed to the development of the present-day surface forms. The solidity and resistance of layers were different. The special towers with unique caps and covers were formed due to differences in the phase of erosion. When speaking of Turkey, we first think of the Islamic country and the medieval Ottoman Empire, and not of the world of ancient wonders, though several events of Greek history and mythology took place here. German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann found Troy in Turkey, and Alexander the Great cut the famous knot with one sword stroke at Gordius, also on Turkish territory. Croesus, with his fabulous wealth, King Midas, who turned everything to gold, and many other legendary figures also lived here in Asia Minor. There's a Mount Olympus in Turkey, too, near Kemer, which is, according to the Turks, the original mountain on the peak of which the gods lived. They say it's still very hard to approach due to flames of natural gases which have been emitted from the earth for millennia. Ararat Mountain can also be found in Turkey, where Noah's Ark ran aground. Moreover, the more than 9,000-year-old settlement Çatalhöyük is also here, which is considered to be the first town of humankind. The Virgin Mary spent her last years here, and Archbishop St. Nicholas, the original Santa Claus, died here. The present-day Istanbul was once Byzantium, the heart of the rich empire. Two of the seven wonders of the ancient world, the Artemis Temple in Ephesus and Halikarnassus Mausoleum, stand here on the coast of the Aegean Sea. Several wonders of the past are here in almost every province of the country. When Emperor Tiberius added Cappadocia to the empire, the town of Kayseri became the center of the budding Christianity. In the 4th and 5th century, the persecution of Christians and the Arab invasion forced a lot of people to find shelter among the desolate rocks, leaving their town behind. Christian communities scooped caves into the easily workable stone, very similar to cave homes in Tunisia. Flats also developed over the centuries. They became much bigger, multi-storied, and had more rooms. Finally, people built foxhole-like labyrinths, where sometimes rooms of family members equipped with aerators were situated on 6 or 7 floors above each other. For the sake of greater similarity, cave homes, like foxholes, were equipped with emergency exits. The surface exits were far away from residential places. Dwellings of certain families were also linked to each other, so mazes comprehensible only for those living there were created. There were some communal places too, for example kitchens, food storage, wine cellars, and churches. The originally Puritan interior of churches became more ornamented during the reign of Empress Theodora because she forbade the persecution of iconolatry in one of her orders. Tour guides show frescoes in the light of torches or flashlights because ancient artists mixed their paint so they would show their most beautiful tone in semi-darkness, similar to that in which they were made. Finally, underground towns suitable for thousands of people were formed, and 3 of these can be visited by tourists. Whether we visit Kaymak, Derinkuyu, or Goram, we mustn't forget that however hot it is outside, it's always very cool underground, and we should also carry a small flashlight with us. The visiting of underground towns is always organized in groups, led by a professional guide, so losing our way is simply impossible. Derinkuyu is the biggest of the underground settlements that have been excavated so far. Its name means deep well in Turkish. We can observe the air pipes and the well for drinking water driven several hundred meters deep into the ground. Any modern underground constructor could be envious of civil engineering completed by primitive equipment at that time. The length of corridors of the enormous city is over 30 kilometers. The corridors were closed with huge stone wheels that resemble a mill wheel. During the excavations in 1963, 10 levels were discovered, but probably there are even more stories. From the number of rooms and the size of the water tank, it's concluded that Derinkuyu could have been home to more than 20,000 people. The outdoor museum of Goram is usually called the Valley of Churches. On the winding paths and staircases of the mountainside, we can visit several chapels and churches of different age. About 3 kilometers from here, rock formations of various shapes, chimneys, and columns create a real forest, and we can also have a look into the witch's brew of nature. Columns in different phases of erosion simply illustrate the formation of these peculiarities in the area. Though China is thought to be a Chinese invention, pottery and making ceramics have a long tradition in the Arabic world as well. Pottery and making painted tiles reached Spain, Portugal, and probably Turkey by way of the Moors. Craftsmen here are extremely good at pottery and ceramics, making crocks, vases, plates, dinner sets, lanterns, and ornaments. Most of the patterns are made by working with the still soft material, and then they fire the clay. Painted motifs play an important role. Everything is handmade here, very carefully. Some of the paints are also blended in the workshop, following ancient recipes. They gladly give presentations to tourists, and in the workshops we can buy the products more cheaply than in the bazaars. Of course, there are not only pottery presentations here. We can see goldsmiths, carpet weavers, and leather artists as well. To learn about a country, in addition to the works of craftsmen, we have to get to know folklore too. They gladly show their folk dances everywhere around Turkey, especially belly dancing. However, dervish dance is harder to come by. The famous professor of Oriental Studies, Dr. Abdul Karim Germanus, wrote the following about dervish dance. The dervish are devotional people absorbed in their faith, apostles of inner unification with God. They walk with God and perform their ceremony every Friday. To a monotone whistle and drumming, they meditate squatting on a mat for a while. Then they rise at a certain sign. The beat of the music accelerates, the dervish start to spin around themselves, turning their right palm to the sky and their left palm to the earth. As they spin faster and faster, their long skirt, which is fixed to their waist by a belt, slowly rises and encircles their legs like an umbrella. They spin for 1 hour on the floor without any noise. Only nimble feet hit the floor, then they sink to the ground, one by one, at the end of the room.